The next two books, excuse me. Oh, my butt hurts. Hello, book friends. I am here just to do a quick check-in of what I've read lately. I think I have 7 books to talk about. And these are all ones that I have read in the past month or so. The very first one that I want to talk about is The Forest on the Edge of Time. This is by Jasmine Kirkbride. I gave this 3.75 stars. This is the story of 2 women who somehow or another, it's not fully explained, but there is a project called Project Kairos that has been making attempts to alter the timeline in order to save the future from ecological devastation and destruction. So these 2 women who, at the start of the book, you don't know a lot about their relationship or their connection, but they travel through time in order to partake in this project, on this mission to save the world, basically. And so one of them travels back to ancient Athens. The other one travels forward into the far, far future, and you are never really given a time frame, a year or a date. You just know that it is so far in the future that the world has turned into this uninhabitable planet, which there are only just a handful of humans who live on the earth, and they are relegated to these compounds in which they can only breathe the atmosphere that's produced indoors. When they go outside, they need to wear, like a biosuit. And so you see these 2 women who end up communicating in their dreams. It's unclear as to what their relationship is. And then you are also introduced to another character in a more modern timeline. And so all along you're trying to figure out their connection and what the story is, what's happening, what is the secret, what is the underlying connection between these 2 characters, and what are they trying to achieve ultimately in each of their timelines. This book was very slow paced. It had a lot of really intriguing and unique ideas when it came to time travel and the future of the planet and all of those ideas. And I did really enjoy the characters, especially the ones in the future, because you're introduced to some robots and they're really fun to read. I really enjoyed that part of the story. I think ultimately, it could have been a little bit faster paced at times. Yeah, I don't know. It was really interesting and it was well written. I just didn't love it. I found myself not always wanting to pick it up. So take that for what you will. The next book I read was The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor. This I read on Kindle Unlimited and I gave it 3.25 stars. This is also, again, in like a dystopian kind of earth in which there's been a lot of chaos and destruction. And there is this chain of islands. I believe it's in like Indonesia or an area like that. Maybe even in China. I can't even remember correctly. All I know is there is a group of scientists on this island who has been emptied of all other humans, all other human occupants, and they are studying the octopus that live in this ocean because they think that they are an advanced species, that they are maybe an understudied and underutilized advanced kind of civilization under the ocean in this area that humans have very little explored. And so it's all about their exploration of this life form, this little clan or family of octopus that live in this specific like bay, and the kind of society that they have formed underneath the water, in the water. And it also, at the same time, follows these other characters that work within this corporation. So you can see some of their ulterior motives. And yeah, it's kind of interesting, but again, kind of slow and a little strange. I did like the writing. I thought that it was pretty interesting. I had a really good time. It was entertaining, though a little bit slow, like I said. So I do think that I will pick up another book from this author at some point. Even though this wasn't a 5-star read for me, I think it was a really good introduction to his writing style and the unique kind of sci-fi ideas that he has. Then I picked up Night Shift again by Stephen King. I had previously read one or two of the stories in this book and kind of put it to the side. And so in the in-between times when I am not filling up my main when I'm not feeling like picking up my main read, I've been picking up Night Shift and reading a short story out of that. I think I've read 4 more, and they're all very Stephen King. They are weird and quirky and fun. One of them had to do with the Stand storyline. It was another offshoot of that world. There was a story about rats. Yeah, so, typical Stephen King type stories. I have enjoyed them so far, although I will say the very first one in this book that I read several months ago, I liked the most, and that was Jerusalem's Lot. So I'm not done with this. I'm still reading it when here and there. The next thing I read was One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. This was a spur-of-the-moment decision to read this because a local book club that I have kind of joined decided to read it. And so I thought it would also be a good choice since it's summertime. It was a summery romance. It takes place on a lake, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. Again, it's not anything earth-shattering or mind-blowing. It's a romance. It was light. It was fun. It's about this girl whose grandmother breaks her hip, and so she takes her back to this lake house where they had spent a summer when she was a kid, and she knows that her grandma really has this emotional connection with this lake house, and she thought it would be a good chance to get her away and to get her mind off of everyday life and to get her to focus on recovery. And while she's there, she meets Noah. And Noah is, of course, a stud muffin. He's got the abs, he's got the good looks, the chiseled jawline, all, of course, the cliche things that you find in these romances. But the thing that really nailed this book for me was not so much, sure, the romance was fun, but the most appealing thing to me in this book was the banter between the two love interests. It was so funny. It was really, really good. I just really enjoyed it, and I laughed so many times. I just thought that it was very endearing, the relationship between our main character and her grandmother. I thought that the foundation of this romance was really well done and respectable. There was never any bad blood that happened between them. It was more about, underlying reasons, personal reasons. It was really good. It was really heartwarming, and I really enjoyed it. And I will definitely be picking up more from Carly Fortune at some time in the future. The next book I picked up was Japanese Gothic by Kylie Lee Baker, and I gave this 3 stars. I think that so this is a story. You have 2 timelines. You have your present day timeline in which you're following Lee, and he is a troubled adolescent, or actually he's in college, so a troubled young man. And then the other timeline, you have, I can't remember her name, but she is a young samurai who lives a very troubled life because her father, who is a samurai, and this is at the time when samurai were basically gotten rid of. There was a whole movement against them. A lot of them killed themselves. So this girl was trained by her father to live like a samurai. And somehow, some way, these two characters meet. And if he crosses into her side of the room, he goes into her time period. And if she crosses into his, she goes into the present day. And so it is all very character-driven kind of exploration of grief and loss, mental illness because of these things that occur. It was pretty slow, I think. There's something about it. I liked it. I enjoyed it well enough, but was it something that will stick with me that I would ever want to pick up again? Probably not. I do think that I would read something else by this same author because it was well written. I loved the fact that it took place in Japan, and there was some kind of creepy aspects to it, some horror in there, which was really fun to read. So that's that. And the next two things I am kind of currently in the midst of reading. The one is Invasive Species by Ellery Adams. I'm reading this on Kindle Unlimited. This is a kind of satirical, mythical horror in which there's a little small town, I think it's around a lake or some body of water, and then there is this creepy neighbor named Mrs. Smith, and there's all kinds of creepy talk about Mrs. Smith and, you know, that she's really some kind of a witch or demon or something. It's very satirical. It's very kind of on the nose and just a little fun read, something that I am reading like here and there. I don't even know, honestly, what the plot is at this point. I'm very early stages into the book, but it is cute. I am enjoying the way it's written. So if you're looking for something in that vein, I think you should check it out. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so you can't beat it. And the next thing that I'm about halfway through, or just over halfway through, is Clans of the Alphane Moon by Philip K. Dick. This is my second Philip K. Dick, and I was so excited to pick up one of his books. I had been juggling around a few different titles that I've heard people talk about and that really interested me, but this one kind of sold itself when I found out that it was based on this moon in which there is a mental institution, and for whatever reason, I forget what happens, but the people running the show end up leaving the moon and leaving all these mental patients to fend for themselves, and they basically create their own society. And in true Philip K. Dick style, these people, based on their mental problems, develop their own little clans. And so then at some point, humans, the main ruling people, decide to go back to this moon to try to take back over the moon. And so you can tell that there's going to be some mayhem and chaos and weird and interesting things that happen. But that was what sold me. The idea that a mental institution gets left to its own devices and that these people create their own society and their own family groups, and you can just see that it's going to be a good time. So I'm really enjoying it. You know, I think Philip K. Dick, his characters are not the best. I think that they're like chess pieces, like they're there to serve a purpose. Like there's not a lot of characterization other than the idea that they represent. And that is definitely true in this book. From my perspective, like I don't think that you form any kind of bond with his characters or, you know, get really invested in their stories because they're just not a lot of characterization to them. Like they are there to serve a purpose, to move the plot forward, and the plot is really what you're there for. Like his sci-fi ideas and the things that he talks about in his books, which are so weird and unique. I mean, that's what you're there for when you read Philip K. Dick, in my opinion. That's what I've been reading. I also have a little bit of a book haul, which I might just include in here right now. These are in no particular order. These are just books that I've randomly picked up after hearing others talk about them. And so the very first one I have is The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper. I believe that this book takes place in Pompeii, and it follows a main character named Amara, who is a prostitute and slave in Pompeii. I've heard that this book is really excellent, really well done, that if you love historical fantasy, historical fiction, that this is a really great book to read. And it's actually a series. I think there's 3 books in the series. So I was really curious about this. I have actually visited Pompeii twice. It is a very sad and interesting story, that of Pompeii. And so I thought that it'd be really fun to read a book that takes place there. Then I picked up this new release, which is Land by Maggie O'Farrell. I have read Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell and also A Marriage Portrait. And I just think that she is such a phenomenal writer. Like, she really does her research. She knows her historical timelines, her characters. She is just a detailed and very well-written author. I have enjoyed everything that I've read by her. I liked Hamnet a lot more than I liked The Marriage Portrait, but still, her characters really just jump off the page, and she is just a very vivid storyteller. I also picked up The Caretaker by Marcus Cleaver. I recently read We Used to Live Here, and I loved it. It was a 5-star read for me. I love that he writes these kind of ambiguous endings, that the story is strange and creepy and twisty-turny. I know that this one is about a job that somebody applies for to take care of this home, and there's all these weird rules that surround it. And it's just very ominous, kind of odd situation. That's all I really know about it. Then I picked up The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I have heard a lot about Rachel Gillig lately, and I don't think that I've read any of her books. I do think this is kind of romantasy or fantasy. So Sybil is a diviner. In her dreams, she receives visions from 6 unearthly figures known as the Omens. Lords and common folk alike travel across the kingdom's windswept moors and craggy mountains to learn their futures by her dreams. Yes, so there is a rude, heretical, and devilishly handsome knight, Roderick. It just sounded really interesting to me. I thought the book itself was really pretty, and so I thought I would give it a go. The next 2 books I have are by the same author. They actually came in a 3-pack. I don't know why I don't have the other one here. Anyway, it's Dark Matter by Michelle Paver. This is in January of 1937. The clouds of war are gathering over a fog-bound London. 28-year-old Jack is poor, lonely, and desperate to change his life. So he's offered the chance to join an Arctic expedition. He jumps on it. Spirits are high as the ship leaves Norway. 5 men and 8 huskies crossing the Barents Sea by the light of the midnight sun. As they reach the remote, uninhabited bay where they will camp for the next year. But the Arctic summer is brief. As night returns to claim the land, Jack feels a creeping unease. One by one, his companions are forced to leave. He faces a stark choice, stay or go. Soon he will see the last of the sun as the polar night engulfs the camp in months of darkness. Soon he will reach the point of no return, when the sea will freeze, making escape impossible. I've heard this is really great, and it's horror. The next one by Michelle Paver is Wakenhurst. This is in Edwardian Suffolk. A manor house stands alone in a lost corner of the fens, a glinting wilderness of water whose whispering reeds guard ancient secrets. Maud is a lonely child growing up without a mother, ruled by her repressive father. When he finds a painted medieval devil in a graveyard, unhallowed forces are awakened. Maud's battle has begun. She must survive a world haunted by witchcraft, the age-old legends of her beloved fen, and even more nightmarish demons on of her father's past. I just thought that it sounded really good. Kind of gothic horror. Then I grabbed The Unicorn Hunter by Catherine Arden. She wrote The Bear and the Nightingale, I believe. I think this is historical fantasy. Anne of Brittany was a child when France invaded and drove her royal father to his death. Now she is a young woman, sovereign duchess of an occupied realm, and France means to crown their conquest by marrying her to their king. Such an alliance would put her title, her lands, and her body forever in the hands of her enemies. But Anne refuses to be the last Duchess of Brittany. Her only hope of resisting conquest is another alliance sealed with marriage. So Anne arranges a daring last gambit, a secret betrothal to Charles of France, great rival. But secrets are hard to keep in a world where rival courts spy on each other with diviners. The forest of, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, was once the haunt of Merlin, the enchanter, the long-lost fairy queen. But magic is long gone from wherever, except for the occasional sight of a unicorn and one critical quirk. This ancient forest is completely inimical to divination. Puppies in here. 2 more. Next one. Sublimation by Isabel J. Kim. This is a sci-fi book, and I've heard quite a few booktubers talking about it. It is about a world in which when your person decides to leave your hometown, your country, you basically break off into 2, and the original you stays behind, and another you goes and lives another life in this new place. And that's really all I know about it. I've heard decent things about it. I thought it was intriguing, so I thought I would give it a go. And the very last one is The Radiant Dark by Alexandria Olivia. This is sci-fi, I believe. It's 1980, and Carol Gerard and her husband are living an ordinary life in a small town in the Adirondacks. They have just had their first child, and though Carol is struggling with challenges of motherhood, her future seems clear until something extraordinary happens, an inexplicable flickering of light in the sky, which is ultimately determined to be communication from intelligent life on another planet. But these beings are 11 light years away, and nothing is known about them other than the fact that they seem to know we exist too, and so begins a decade-long exchange of messages with this mysterious, faraway civilization. As humanity reels from a shifting understanding of its place in the universe, we follow the stories of the Gerard family, and their goal to work in interstellar communication will evolve into something far grander. So it sounds like a character-driven sci-fi alien first contact story, which is right up my alley. I hope to get to this one soon. That's it, guys. Those are the books I've hauled. That's what I've been reading. I would love to know if you have read any of these books and what you thought. That's it for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!